Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and fellow soldiers in the global economy, welcome back to another sharp, clear-headed dissection of today's political and economic drama, where misguided policy meets hard facts, and we uncover the truth behind the numbers. I'm sure most of you are here because you've been following the global financial news with a keen eye well-honed to spot trouble, and you've undoubtedly seen the alarming developments coming from what was once the world's most trusted economy. Yes, I'm talking about the good old United States. Let's jump right into it, starting with the elephant in the room. American taxpayers are now footing the bill for yet another massive aid package to Ukraine, as a crumbling geopolitical landscape keeps sucking the life out of economies around the world. $5.9 billion. Yes, you heard me right. As of this week, that's the amount in fresh aid heading to Ukraine, with a giant chunk of that being $1.25 billion worth of weapons and ammunition. Some say this is supporting democracy in Ukraine. I say it's another chapter in the great economic illusion that Washington wants to sell to the world while abandoning its sinking economic ship at home, supporting the intermittent cycles of recession, inflation, and general mismanagement one bill at a time. Now, what is this money really being used for, and what does it mean for regular people in our own economies? Let's break it down from Economics 101 first, and don't let stretched government narratives fool you. America, since 2022, has given over $60 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Let's put this into context. $60 billion is more than enough to fix crumbling infrastructure, alleviate student debt anxiety, or help small businesses survive in a time of fierce, ever-rising inflation. But no, it's all being diverted towards a foreign war. What's mind-blowing is the sheer irony of it all. The U.S. government has essentially become a deluxe ATM for overseas conflict at a time when their own currency is becoming another casualty of their decisions. By 2024, analysts were already raising alarms over the dollar's declining appeal as a global reserve currency. Goldman Sachs, for instance, recently pointed out that shifts in global trading dynamics toward a more multipolar dollar system could trim the USD's share in global reserves to below 50% by 2035. What accelerates this? Irresponsible spending habits like tossing billions into a foreign conflict that, at this point, lacks a clear resolution. And let's not even talk about Trump's potential return to power. We all know how that story unfolds. An administration more interested in backdoor diplomacy with Putin while giving Ukraine the cold shoulder and leaving Europe in a state of heightened diplomatic and energy chaos. But speaking of energy chaos, it looks like Europe is in for one nasty winter. If you think the situation couldn't get worse, just take a look at the gas markets, which are rapidly going belly up due to the fractured energy supply chain. European gas reserves are sinking fast, below 75% capacity, driven not just by increased heating demand but, more importantly, the overstated reliance on Russia-Ukraine gas transit. Heck, they've been pulling from reserves quicker than expected, combined with the ticking clock on that very transit agreement that's about to run out at the worst time possible. And if Europe thinks switching to US liquefied natural gas, LNG, as a miraculous alternative will solve the crisis, then they're truly living in a dream. The real price here isn't just increasing utility bills for European households, but a more significant market destabilization. When temperatures drop deeper this winter, watch out for industrial energy consumption as well as retail prices to spike, sending shockwaves through everything from consumer spending to manufacturing output. If you're sitting in Europe and thinking of heading into January with higher than normal energy costs tied to an economic downturn, you are in for a roller coaster attempt to juggle soaring inflation with precarious monetary policy. Remember, as weather worsens, demand surges, even diversified sources of energy can't fully counter the crisis, which will, mark my words, drive European economies closer to collective contraction well into 2025. Just pause for a moment, let's put ourselves in perspective. Gas, the commodity that powered so much of Europe, is now weaponized against itself, thanks in large part to foreign policy mismanagement and an almost perverse reliance on Russia. Meanwhile, Russia, the so-called economic pariah of the West, has been cushioned by its pivot to new trading partners. India, China, and even countries like Turkey have stepped in to purchase Russian crude at discounts as Moscow reshuffles its global alliances, exploiting loopholes in embargoes and sanctions. While Europe is freezing, Russia is raking up new revenue streams. Who could make this stuff up? Now, let's talk about Turkey. The Turkish lira, an absolute disaster. Erdogan, yet again, performs his famous economic magic trick, where he believes, or claims to believe, that interest rates falling would cool inflation. It's textbook self-sabotage. The Turkish lira collapsed further on Monday, and honestly, are we surprised? After all, Turkey's market has been a colonial sandbox for Erdogan's unorthodox monetary experiments for years now. His regime has severed bankers' hands just when they needed to raise rates and protect people's real wages. Turks, already living with hyperinflation, the real inflation rate topping an unbelievable 58.94% this year, are bracing for more economic pain. I always say that we need to focus on inflation because it's the most immediate tax on people's livelihoods, and once inflation spends years unchecked, believe me, the social consequences will be catastrophic. The real joke here is that Erdogan wants to build confidence in economic growth by cutting rates even more. You can't marry skyrocketing prices with tiny interest rates, that's like throwing water on an oil fire. His regime unravels as quickly as Turkish consumer purchasing power evaporates. But let's take a breather from the global battlefield, and for a second, I know what you're thinking, has the world gone completely mad? Now, to balance this madness, we pivot back to the growing trend of behind-closed-doors financial scandals, the latest one featuring none other than Iranian oil tycoon Hossein Shemkhani. Avoiding sanctions, leveraging citizenship schemes, and dodging Western regulations all while continuing to fuel Iranian and Russian regimes economically, Shemkhani's move might sound like an isolated case, but it represents a broader global phenomenon. Here's the harsh fact. Capital is flowing freely between the cracks of an already dysfunctional sanctions regime where wealthy elites, starved for liquidity due to having their assets sanctioned, are using legal loopholes to maintain influence. Can you blame them? It's high time our global financial institutions woke up and recognized the need for actual reform in global money flow regulations. When an individual, even on sanctioned lists, can access the world's top financial markets with just a couple of purchased EU passports, there's something seriously wrong. Let's step outside the West for a second and take an even closer look to the South. Mozambique, experiencing political unrest after its supposedly democratic elections, is on the brink of its own deeper economic crisis. Hundreds dead, entire political groups pushing back against state overreach, and what's really happening? Oh yes, just another quick descent into chaos for another developing country that is stuck between a rock and an economic stability issue. When did we last see anything substantial from Mozambique? That's right, we haven't. Yet, it's another example of war-trodden economies falling into deeper poverty cycles, while the global financial system is preoccupied with playing geopolitical chess. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the world we live in now. Economically fragile, politically unstable, and socially volatile. We're witnessing a breakdown of the old global order. And look, if you're sitting there and thinking, well, at least we'll have some high-end restaurants to escape this madness, think again. London's booming restaurant scene may have some haute cuisine distractions come 2025, but the restaurant business itself reflects stark inequality. Gordon Ramsay may start up 5 new restaurants, but guess who the target market is? Wealthy elites who are still reaping the rewards from quantitative easing, those asset holders who benefited from inflated equity and real estate markets while the middle and working classes got priced out of their own lives. To wrap this all up, what we're witnessing is not just a geopolitical crisis but an interconnected web of economic misfires that will shape the lives of the next global generation. Inflation, currency devaluation, energy shortages, sovereign debt defaults, and food insecurity, all fueled by poor foreign policy decisions that prioritize military spending and abstract geopolitical goals over real, grounded economic stability for ordinary people on the ground. Can anyone say with confidence that their economies are prepared for what's coming next? Whether it's American aid to Ukraine that's fast becoming a drain on Washington's own economy, Turkey's floundering lira, Europe's energy struggles, or the increasing fragility of developing markets like Mozambique, the underlying theme is disturbingly consistent across the world: structural neglect of domestic resilience in favor of international blunders. The world economy is in a state of crisis, make no mistake about it. 2025 may bring high-end dinners to London, but it's also set to bring many working people sleepless nights as they struggle to survive the fallout from leadership that has long ignored fiscal and monetary responsibility. So as we look ahead, let's be clear about one thing: until sound economic principles are reinstated in government, we're in for a long, hard reckoning. Thank you for watching today's deep dive into the economic madness of 2024. Let's stay sharp, stay informed, and never be fooled.